Right. What's good? What's good, man? We got some shit on deck, dog. Somebody shared this information with me. I'd like to thank him very much for that. He wants to remain anonymous. He said it's best to work behind the scenes. But thought that my platform could probably help out with getting some of this information to the people. Give me a second while I Yeah, so this is concerning let me turn this down some. Man, this is concerning some deep stuff, y'all. Turn it up there. Turn it down here. Actually, just let some people get in. Yo, go get everybody, man. This is some very important information. I don't know if y'all missed it. I sure missed it. I missed it. Hey, yo, who with me? Is this music too loud? Try to turn it down, son. Peace, Mongo. What up, bro? Yo, go get everybody, bro. This shit I'm about to show y'all, bro. This shit is wild. This is literally something we gotta talk about, dog. Bro. Let me show you this, bro. Look at this shit. October 12th, October 2012, bro. Was this a city or work? This is when man, let's talk about this. All right, so this is a syllabus. It's basically set up for the reader to understand what went down in court. And so, and this right here is basically a higher court. That's what this word means. A higher court is looking over a lower court decision. Supreme Court of the United States, Association for Molecular Pathology, Myriad Genetics Incorporated, what's that? Certiorari to the United States Court of Appeals for the Federal Court, for the Federal Circuit. Number 12-398. Argued April 15th, 2013. Decided June 13th, 2013. Right up under our noses. Think about what was happening during that time, bro. Check this out. Each human gene is encoded as deoxyribonucleic acid, ribonucleic acid, DNA, which takes the shape of a double helix. Each crossbar in that helix consists of two chemically joined nucleotides. Sequence of DNA nucleotides contains the information necessary to create strings of amino acids. Hey, can you see those words? Hope y'all can see these words. Say sequences of DNA nucleotides contain the information necessary to create strings of amino acids used to build protein in the body. The nucleotides that code for amino acids are exons, and those that do not are introns. Scientists can extract DNA from cells to isolate specific segments for study. They can also synthetically create exons, only strands of nucleotides known as complementary DNA or cDNA. cDNA contains only the exons that occur in DNA, omitting the intervening introns. Okay. Responded Myriad Genetics, Inc., Myriad, obtained several patents after discovering the process, the precise location and sequence of the BRCA1 and the BRCA2 genes, mutations of which can dramatically increase the risk of breast and ovarian cancer. This knowledge allowed Myriad to determine the gene's typical nucleotide sequence, which in turn enabled it to develop medical tests useful for detecting mutations in these genes in particular patients to assess the patient's cancer risk. If valid, Myriad's patents would give its exclusive right to isolate an individual's BRCA1 and BRCA2 gene, and it would give Myriad the exclusive right to synthetically create BRCA and cDNA. So these mugs then created a patent on a program that can trick the body into letting it in. Dog. Maybe I'm thinking ahead. Let's continue to read. Let's continue to read. Bro. Okay, petitioners filed suit seeking a declaration that Myriad's patents are invalid under 35 U.S.C. 101 as relevant here. The district court granted summary judgment to petitioners, including the Myriad's claims were invalid because they covered products of nature. The Federal Circuit initially reversed, but on remand in light of Mayo Collaborative Services versus Prometheus Laboratories, Inc., 566 U.S., the circuit found both isolated DNA and cDNA patent eligible. So you can make a DNA and patent it. You could take somebody else's DNA, change it, and patent it. I mean, because you can't get DNA from nowhere else but a person, right? And things. So concerning these cancer risks, that's what they went up under. Hold on. The way my man put it to me was so heavy, bro. Hold on, let me go to the next one. Associations for Molecular Pathology, Myriad Genetics. Okay, hell, a naturally occurring DNA segment is a product of nature and not patent eligible merely because it has been isolated. But cDNA is patent eligible because It is not naturally occurring. Okay, and I guess that's where they on the actual. I actually got that right here. This page 10 through 18. We'll see. This is just a condensed version. The Patent Act permits patents to be issued to whoever invents or discovers any new and useful composition of matter. 101. But laws of nature, natural phenomenon, and abstract ideas are basic tools of scientific technological work that lie beyond the domain of patent protection. Meo supra at blank at blank. What is that? The rule against patents on naturally occurring things has limits. However, patent protection strikes a delicate balance between creating incentives that lead to creation, invention, and discovery, and impeding the flow of information that might permit, indeed spur, invention. This standard is used to determine whether Myriad's patent claims a new and useful composition of matter or claim naturally occurring phenomena. Let me spark up, man. Let me spark up a little bit. I know it's early, but shit, my day just about to get started. Peace, Big O. What's up, guy? Shalom, shalom, bro. Hold on, is that Leah? Or peace to both y'all, whoever shit. I can never remember which one of y'all is. Oh, no, that is. What's up, bro? This shit is wild, man. So these motherfuckers, look. So I'm gonna tell y'all up front, right now. We gonna prove it with the court case, but I'm gonna tell y'all up front that these motherfuckers then wrote programs, RNA sequences, right? They patent the RNA sequence. They inject it in a person, and the RNA sequence tricks the body, right? Because it tricks the body and it doesn't destroy. The body doesn't destroy this thing. So the sequence come in and it changes the DNA. Once the DNA changes, that person is no longer human. I'm just telling y'all right out. That's what this is going to tell you. That person is no longer human, and it no longer falls up under the Constitution of the United States. It actually is, and actually, because that RNA sequence is patent, the person belongs to it becomes a product. The person becomes a product. So it's been introduced through this particular court case that it can be given as a vaccine. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, bro. I see you. Yeah, this wild, bro. So once the RNA sequence is injected and changes the DNA, you are no longer human. Let's continue. All right. B, Myriad's DNA claims fall within the law of nature exception. Myriad's principal contribution was uncovering the precise location and genetic sequence of the BRCA1 and the BRCA2 genes. Diamond versus Chakrabarty, 447 US, I guess that's where you can find it, is essential to the patent eligibility inquiry, whether such action was new with markedly different characteristics from any found in nature. Myriad did not create or alter either the genetic information encoded in the BCRA1 and BCRA2 genes or the genetic structure of the DNA. It found an important and useful gene, but groundbreaking, innovative, or even brilliant discovery does not by itself satisfy the 101 inquiry. Okay. Finding the location of the BRCA1 and BRCA2 gene does not render the genes patent eligible. New compositions of matter. Myriad's patent description highlight the problem with its claim. They detail the extensive process of discovery, but extensive effort alone is insufficient to satisfy the 101 demands. Myriad's claims are not saved by the fact that the isolating DNA from the human genome serves the chemical bonds that bind genes and molecules together. The claims are not expressed in terms of chemical composition, nor do they rely on the chemical changes resulting from the isolation of a particular DNA section. Instead, they focus on the genetic information encoded in the BRCA1 and BRCA2 genes. Finally, Myriad argues that the Patent and Trademark Office past practices of awarding gene patents is entitled to the difference, citing Gem AG Supply Inc. versus Pioneer Hybrid, blah blah cases that prove they point. Okay. A case where Congress had endorsed a PTO practice in subsequent legislation. There has been no such endorsement here, and the United States argued the Federal Circuit and in this court that isolated DNA was not patent eligible under 101, page 12 and 16. We'll get to that. It's like 18 pages. Okay. cDNA is not a product of nature, so it is patent eligible under 101. cDNA does not present the same obstacles to patentability as natural occurring isolated DNA segments. Its creation results in exons only molecule, which is not naturally occurring. Its order of the exons may be dictated by nature, but the lab technician unquestionably creates something new when introns are removed from a DNA sequence to make cDNA. This case, it is important to note, does not involve method claims, patents on new applications of knowledge about the BRCA1 and BRCA2 genes, or the patentability of DNA in which the order of the natural occurring nucleotides has been altered. Okay, so let's get to it. Supreme Court, United States, Association for Molecular Pathology. Is this the right one? Yep. All right. Association for Molecular Pathology and Genetics on writ of certiorari to the United States Court of Appeals for the Federal Court. Okay, so certiorari, like I said, is when a higher court kind of look over the decision of a lower court or office. Justice Thomas delivered the opinion of the court. Respondent Myriad's Genetics, Inc., Myriad's discovered the precise location of the sequence of two human genes, mutations of which can substantially increase the risk of breast cancer and ovarian cancer. Okay, so this is all the way back in 2013. So they know what caused, they know what high risks, what gene are high risk of breast cancer and ovarian cancer. It finding that they discovered something else. Okay, Myriad's obtained a number of patents based on its discovery. This case involves claims from where three of them and requires three of them and requires us to resolve whether a naturally occurring segment of DNA is patent eligible under 35 USC 101 by virtue of its isolation from the rest of the human genome. So they're trying to figure out. That's some bullshit, bro. So these motherfuckers figured they could, since they found something that God did, they could patent that shit. Since they found it first. Like the shit was not there in the first place. That's some bullshit, bro. Okay. We also address the patent eligibility of synthetically created DNA known as complementary DNA, which contains the same protein coding information found in a segment of natural DNA, but omits portions within the DNA segment that do not code for protein. Okay. So they remove something from it, like, okay, this ain't DNA no more. This ain't that shit that God did. This something else. We took that shit out that God did. We doing something else with it. So we should be able to patent it. Okay. For the reason that follow, we hold that a naturally occurring DNA segment is a product of nature and not patent eligible, merely because it has been isolated. But the cDNA is patent eligible because it is not naturally occurring. We therefore affirm in part and reverse in part the decision. Okay, so they affirm in part and reverse in part decision of the United States Courts of Appeals for the Federal Circuit. Genes from the basis of hereditary traits in living organisms. Okay, IA. What's that? IA gene. Genes form the basis of hereditary traits in living organisms. See Generally Association for Molecular Pathology versus United States Patent and Trademark Office 702 F sub 2D. We don't got to read all that shit. Anyway, the human genome consists of approximately 22,000 genes packed into 23 pairs of chromosomes. Each gene is encoded as DNA, which takes the shape of the familiar double helix that Dr. James Watson and Francis Crick first described in 1953. Each crossbar in the DNA helix consists of two chemically joined nucleotides. The possible nucleotides are adenine, A, thymine, T, cytosine, C, and guanine, G, each of which binds naturally with another nucleotide. A pair with T, C pairs with G, A pairs with T, C pairs with G. The nucleotides crossbars are chemically connected to sugar phosphates backbone that forms the outside framework of DNA helix. You know what? I'm only reading this because I really don't fully understand DNA, and it's actually insightful. So let's get it. Okay. The nucleotides crossbar are chemically connected to a sugar phosphate backbone that forms the outside framework of the DNA helix. Sequences of DNA nucleotides contain the information necessary to create strings of amino acids, which in turn are used in the body to build proteins. Only some DNA nucleotides, however, code for amino acids. These nucleotides are known as exons. Okay, nucleotides code for amino acids, exons. Nucleotides that do not code for amino acids, in contrast, are known as introns. Creation of protein from DNA involves two principal steps known as transcription and translation. In transcription, the bond between DNA nucleotides separate, and the DNA helix unwinds into a single strand. A single strand is used as a template to create a complementary ribonucleic strand, RNA. The nucleotides on DNA strands pair naturally with their counterparts, with the exception that RNA uses nucleotides based aryl U instead of thymine T. Transcriptions results in a single strand RNA molecule known as pre-RNA, which nucleotides form an inverse image of the DNA strand from which it was created. Pre-RNA still contains nucleotide corresponding to both exons and introns in the DNA molecule. The pre-RNA is then naturally spliced by the physical removal of introns. The resulting product is a strand of RNA that contains nucleotides corresponding only to the exons from the original DNA strand. The exons only strand is known as messenger RNA, which creates amino acids through translation. Okay, y'all get that? I did, because I'm about to read this again. But I understand a lot of it. I'm in the medical field, so some of it I understand. But just to get the ball rolling, I'm reading faster than I normally do. Because I like to look up words and all of that. Okay. In translation, cellular structures known as ribosomes read each set of 3 nucleotides known as codons in the messenger RNA. Each codon either tells the ribosome which of the 20 possible amino acids to synthesize or provides a stop signal that ends amino acid production. DNA informational sequences and processes that create mRNA, amino acids, and proteins occur naturally within cells. Scientists can, however, extract DNA from cells using well-known laboratory methods. These methods allow scientists to isolate specific segments of DNA, for instance, in particular gene or a part of a gene, which can then be further studied, manipulated, or used. It is also possible to create DNA synthetically through processes similarly well known in the field of genetics. So you can create a DNA. One such method begins with a messenger RNA molecule and uses the natural bonding properties of nucleotides to create a new synthetic DNA molecule. The result is the inverse of the messenger RNA inverse image of the original DNA, with one important distinction. Because the natural creation of messenger RNA involves splicing that removes introns, the synthetic DNA created from mRNA also contains only the exon sequence. This synthetic DNA created in the laboratory from messenger RNA is known as complementary DNA. Changes in the genetic sequence are called mutations. Mutations can be as small as the alterations of a single nucleotide, a change affecting only one letter in the genetic code. Such a small-scale changes can produce an entirely different amino acid or can end protein production altogether. Large changes involving the deletion, rearrangement, and duplication of hundreds or even millions of nucleotides can result in the elimination of misplacement or duplication of an entire gene. Some mutations are harmless, but others can cause disease or increase the risk of disease. As a result, the study of genetics can lead to valuable medical breakthroughs. B. This case involves patents filed by Myriad after it made one such medical breakthrough. Myriad discovered that the precise location of the sequences of what are now known as the BRCA1 and BRCA2 genes, mutations in these genes can dramatically increase an individual's risk of developing breast or ovarian cancer. That's 2013. When did they make all those girls or try to get them to get that ovarian cancer shot? Taz, what up, bro? You gonna have to break this one, bro. I don't know if you paid attention, but I'm gonna sum it up real quick. Hold on, what's this? Oh shit. So check it out. So I'm basically putting 2 and 2 together. I mean, you can discount it if you like. But a company figured out two particular genes, right? These genes increase the risk of breast cancer and ovarian cancer. But in doing so, they found out that they created a whole new. Okay, let me read this because this probably gonna actually answer that. What I'm trying to say. Okay, mutations in these genes can dramatically increase the risk of developing breast cancer or ovarian cancer. The average American woman has 12 to 13% risk of developing breast cancer. But for women with certain genetic mutations, the risk can range from 50 to 80% for breast cancer and between 20 to 50% for ovarian cancer. Before Myriad's discovery of BRCA1 and BRCA2, the gene scientists knew that hereditary played a role in establishing a woman's risk of developing breast and ovarian cancer, but they did not know which genes were associated with those cancers. Myriad identified the exact location of the BRCA1 and the BRCA2 gene on chromosome 17 and 13. Chromosome 17 has approximately 80 million nucleotides, and chromosome 13 has approximately 114 million. Patent and Trade Office. Okay, that's where you can find that. Within those chromosomes, the BRCA1 and BRCA2 genes are each about 80,000 nucleotides long. If just exons are counted, the BRCA1 gene is only about 5,500 nucleotides long. For BRCA2 gene, that number is about 10,200. Knowledge of the location of the BRCA1 and BRCA2 genes allowed Myriad to determine their typical nucleotide. Nucleotide sequence. That information in turn enabled Myriad to develop medical tests that are useful for detecting mutations in a patient's BRCA1 and BRCA2 genes, that thereby assessing whether the patient has an increased risk of cancer. Once it found the location of the sequence of the BRCA1 and BRCA2 genes, Myriad sought and obtained a number of patents. 9 compositions claims from 3, and those patents are at issue in this case. Okay. So they got 9 patents, and 3 of those are the issue of this case. Okay. Claim 1, 2, and 5, and 6 from the 282 patents are representatives. The first claim asserts a patent on an isolated DNA coding for BRCA1 polypeptide, which has the amino acid sequence set forth in sequence ID number 2, APA 822. Sequence number 2 sets forth a list of 1,863 amino acids that typically BRCA1 gene encodes. Put differently, okay, claim 1 asserts a patent claim on DNA code that tells a cell to produce a string of BRCA1 amino acids listed in sequence ID number 2. Claim 2 of the 282 patents operate similar. It claims the isolated DNA of claim 1, wherein said DNA has the nucleotide sequence set forth in sequence ID number 1 at 822, like sequence ID number 2, okay, blah, blah, blah. Sets forth a long list of data. In this instance, the sequence of cDNA that codes for the BRCA1 amino acids listed in claim 1. Importantly, sequence 1 lists only the cDNA exons in the BRCA1 gene rather than the full DNA sequence containing both exons and introns. Okay, so all of this is scientific shit that I ain't really interested in. But okay. Number 1, which codes for the typical BRCA1 gene, 689, blah, 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 more occurring in part, so blah, occurring. Y'all can read, fuck that. Claim 5 and 3 of patents subsequent to data claim, particularly claims isolated DNA having at least 15 nucleotides of DNA in Claim 1. The practical effect of the Claim 5 is to assert the patent on any series of 15 nucleotides that exist in the typical BRCA1 gene. Because the BRCA1 gene is thousands of nucleotides long, even BRCA1 gene with substantial mutations are likely to contain at least one segment of 15 nucleotides that correspond to the typical BRCA1 gene. Similarly, Claim 6 of 282 patent claims an isolated DNA having at least 15 nucleotides of DNA of claim, blah, 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 claim, except that references cDNA-based claim 2. The remaining claims at issues are similar, though several lists of common mutations rather than typical blah, blah, blah. Okay. Myriad's patents would, if valid, give the exclusive right to isolate an individual's BRCA1 and BRCA2 genes, or any strand of 15 or more nucleotides within the gene, by breaking the covalent bonds that connect the DNA to the rest of the individual's genome. The patents would also give Myriad the exclusive right to synthetically create BRCA1 and cDNA. In Myriad's view, manipulating BRCA1 DNA in either of these fashions triggers its right to exclude others from making its patent composition of matter under the Patent Act. Any patent invention infringes on patent. That's crazy, bro. That's totally insane, bro. These niggas can literally patent parts of your DNA. I wonder if let me see something right quick. Let's see this.
For decades, the United States Patent and Trademark Office granted gene patents, or patents for isolated DNA sequences representing genes. Such patents were controversial because they granted patent holders exclusive rights to control how the relevant genes were used in clinical testing and scientific research. The United States Supreme Court assessed the validity of gene patents in Association for Molecular Pathology versus Myriad Genetics Incorporated. Myriad Genetics discovered the location and DNA sequence of the BRCA1 and BRCA2 genes. Because mutations to those genes greatly increased a woman's risk of breast and ovarian cancer, locating the genes allowed for testing to identify women with an increased cancer risk. After its discoveries, Myriad obtained numerous patents. The patents included protection for the isolated DNA sequences of the BRCA genes and for complementary DNA, or cDNA, which was a lab-generated synthetic creation including only the portions of the DNA segments that coded for proteins. Myriad's patents effectively granted it the exclusive right to isolate a person's BRCA genes for testing and to create BRCA cDNA. Various doctors, patients, and advocacy groups, including the Association for Molecular Pathology, filed suit against Myriad, seeking a declaration that Myriad's patents for the isolated DNA sequences and cDNA were invalid. They argued that the sequences and cDNA weren't patentable inventions because they were products of nature. The district court held that the patents were invalid. The Federal Circuit reversed that holding, finding the patents valid, but affirmed the district court's decision in part on other grounds. The United States Supreme Court granted cert.
See something right quick. Fact check right quick. Let's see what the opposition is saying. So, contrary to claims on social media, COVID-19 vaccines using messenger RNA technology do not transform recipients from humans into hybrids, nor do they alter human DNA through nanotechnology. Now, hold on. That don't sound like what we just read. The Pfizer BioNTech and Moderna vaccines use a new RNA technology. Fuck that, bro. They just said messenger RNA. Fuck that, bro. That don't even make sense. You telling us. Wait a minute, man. Like you still gonna be human, but you not gonna grow horns. But what about the law of it? What about the law? If you pass the law saying that these people who write these RNA sequences can patent part of the DNA that the RNA changes, then what does it mean judicially for the people who RNA is changed? Are they still considered human? Are they still considered natural? Right? Because we read back here. Let's see. Let's go back to that. What it says something about. Okay. But the cDNA is patent eligible, eligible because it is not naturally occurring. So if the RNA changes the DNA, then that shit is patentable. Am I tripping? That shit is patent. You can be patent. You can belong to somebody, bro. If they write because they wrote the messenger RNA, that shit changes the DNA. The people who wrote the messenger RNA sequence owns it. Therefore, your DNA is changed to the sequence that the RNA sequence created. You're no longer you. You no longer what God meant for you to be. Now, these motherfuckers right here, like, okay, part of the virus genetic code RNA to stimulate the recipient immune response. So causes the recipient let's read that again. The Pfizer BioNTech and Moderna vaccines use a new RNA technology involving the injection of a small part of the virus genetic code, RNA, to stimulate the recipient's immune response. The RNA does not alter the recipient's DNA. It is broken down shortly after the vaccine, after vaccination, and does not stay in the body. That's see how they just probably It sound like bullshit. The false post shows an alleged realist portrayal of what is occurring in a vaccinated person's body as we speak, and the claim that the recipients are now technically no longer human. They are now hybrids, which is fucking true. That's the truth. I'll give you a hint. Nanotechnology. It spreads itself throughout the body, altering DNA and wreaking sick havoc on the entire system. There is no way to detoxify or remove it from the body. It's forever. Okay, this is one of the claims. Okay, both Moderna and Pfizer biotech vaccines use new messenger RNA technology, which contains instructions for human cells to make proteins that mimic part of the novel coronavirus. The instructions spur the immune systems into action, turning the body into a virus-zapping vaccine factory. No, actual virus is contained in the vaccines. No actual virus is contained in the vaccine. No actual viruses. That don't make sense. You taking part of the virus, which is the messenger RNA of the virus, bro. The sequence for changing DNA. You taking that and you putting that in a nigga. And you saying it's not changing who you are. Peace, A9. What up, big O? This shit wild, bro. So they want us, they're pushing. Now, see, I'm a semi-biblical guy, right? And you think about things like he shall cause young and old, basically the whole world to receive a mark of the beast, right? I'm not saying that the vaccine is the mark of the beast, by no means. But quite possibly, it causes the body to create an environment that benefits the owners of the program, the RNA sequence, which is probably going to be the government. And they're getting a lot of push. Like, they getting, yo, take this fucking vaccine, take the vaccine or die. Basically, it's like Christianity back in the day. You know what I'm saying? Convert or die. Convert or starve. Convert or be put out your fucking house. It's the same shit. Bro, it's the same shit, y'all. Let me go back to this shit right here, bro. Where's we at? Myriad's patents would, if valid, give it an exclusive right to isolate and individuals. This is a nigga. This is somebody they talking about. They talking about somebody, bro. Myriad's patents would, if valid, give it the exclusive right to isolate an individual's BRCA1 and BRCA2 genes or any strands of 15 or more nucleotides within the genes by breaking the covalent bonds that connect the DNA to the rest of the individual's genome. The patents will also give Myriad the exclusive right to synthetically create BRCA and cDNA. In Myriad's view, manipulating the BRCA DNA is in either of these fashions triggers its right to exclude others from making its patent composition of matter under the Patent Act. So see, whosoever without authority makes any patent invention infringes the patent. So they talking about they can patent somebody else's stuff, y'all. That's what they're saying. This is wild. This is wild, bro. They can patent you. They can change your DNA. I mean, basically, that's what it's saying. I mean, we not no idiots, bro. They telling us. This is back in 2013. The court case went through. Yes, they were able to patent some things. So they said they affirmed, and then they went against some other shit. Right? Let's continue to read. That information, in turn, enabled Myriad to develop medical tests that are useful for detecting mutations in a patient's BRCA1 and BRCA2 genes, and thereby assessing whether the patent has an increased risk of cancer. Once it found the location of the sequence of the BRCA1 and BRCA2 gene, the Myriad sought to obtain a number of patents. 9 composition claims from 3 of those patents are at issue in this case. We went through that. This is where we was at. Okay. But isolation is necessary to conduct genetic testing, and Myriad was not the only entity to offer BRCA testing after it discovered the genes. The University of Pennsylvania's Genetic Diagnostic Laboratory and others provided genetic testing services to women. Petitioner Dr. Harry Oster, then a researcher at New York University School of Medicine, routinely sent his patent DNA samples to GDL for testing. After learning of GDL's testing and Oster's activities, Myriad sent letters to them asserting that the genetic testing infringed on Myriad's patents. What? Because they found in a human something that God did. They think they can own it. They think they can own parts of the things that God, the Most High Creator, did. They can own the land. They can own the air. They can own the water. And now they're literally trying to own you by law, like natural law, like to trump natural law, bro. Like, you're no longer what he did. You're what we did. Crazy, man. That's crazy. Okay. So Myriad sent letters to these motherfuckers like, y'all got to stop doing that shit. Y'all infringing on the patents. In response, GDL agreed to stop testing and inform Austria that it would no longer accept patient samples. Myriad also filed patent infringement suits against other entities that perform BRCA testing, resulting in settlements in which the defendants agreed to cease all allegedly infringing activity. Myriad thus solidified its position as the only entity providing BRCA testing. Wow. Some years later, petitioner Oster, along with medical patients advocacy groups and other doctors, filed this lawsuit seeking a declaration that Myriad patents are invalid under 35 U.S.C. 101, 702 F sub blah, 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 citing this court decision in a MetaImmune Inc. versus Genotech Inc. in 2007. The district court denied Myriad's motion to dismiss for lack of standing. Association of Molecular Pathology versus United States Patent and Trademark Office, blah, 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 in 2009. So look where we at. The district court then granted summary judgment to petitioners on the composition claims at issue, in this case based on the inclusion that Myriad's claims, including claims related to cDNA, were invalid because they covered products of nature. Damn right. 702, so blah, blah, blah. The Federal Circuit Court reversed Association for Molecular Pathology versus United States Patent and Trademark Office. And this court granted the petition for certiorari, vacated the judgment, and commanded the case in light of Mayo Collaborative Service versus Prometheus Laboratories in 2012. Look where we at. They having these shits. They having these arguments about, dog. What was popping in 2012, bro? They's having these arguments right up under our noses about us, humans, bro. On remand, the federal circuit affirmed the district court in part of reverse and in part and reverse in part, which each member of the panel writing separately. All three judges agreed that only petitioner Ostra had standing. They reasoned that Myriad's actions against him and his stated ability and willingness to begin BRCA1 and BRCA2 testing if Myriad's testing of Myriad's patents were invalid were sufficient for Article 3 standing. Opinion of Moore, opinion of Bryson, okay, blah, blah, blah. Those is the judges. I guess that was on panel. I seen something the other day. See what I liked. It was on my TikTok. Liked. Let's see where it's at. Where's it at? Where's it at? Where's it at? My beautiful daughter. Dang. What did I do with it? One of these people I added, he had took some information. Hmm. See where it's at. Yeah. So this dude consolidated all the videos of this discussion. And when you see all of the videos in one, it just paints a big picture. And then how it all comes up to this point and pushing pushing the situation that we're in right now. Just talking under my breath. Y'all know what's up. Let's see if this is it. No. Where's my phone? I got whatever. I look for this. Hold on, I'm trying to find something. Video. What up, 89, bro?
These are my people.
Bible, but you look, human is another interesting word. It appears nowhere in the Bible, but you look up the definition of human in Black's Law, and it says sea monster. And so you flip to monster, and you look up the definition for monster, and it says one that cannot own or inherit property. Now, all governments have human resource departments, and all corporations have human resource departments. Isn't that interesting? Job is another interesting definition. Job is defined as public business for private dishonest gain. Is the definition of job. Human.
Leave it there. Oh my God, he's on the track.
That ain't the video, dog. But I gotta find this shit because it was so heavy. can't find it, y'all. That shit off of here. It was so deep, bro. Right back. Shit, so I can't find it, man. I can't find it, bro.
In an unanimous ruling, the US Supreme Court says that human genes cannot be patented, as DNA is a product of nature. But the court said synthetically produced genetic material can be claimed as intellectual property. US pharmaceutical companies...
Boom. So regular DNA can't be patented. But if they give you that sequence, that messenger RNA that change your DNA, then it can be patented. It's no longer natural.
In an unanimous ruling, the US Supreme Court says that human genes cannot be patented, as DNA is a product of nature. But the court said synthetically produced genetic material can be claimed as intellectual property. US pharmaceutical companies had previously warned that banning DNA patents would put investment in gene therapies at risk. The compromise ruling over artificially copied DNA is expected to protect existing patents covering synthetic molecules. Myriad Genetics is at the center of the legal battle. The company argued that they had isolated the specific cancer-related genes, thus making them susceptible to intellectual property laws, but their claim was struck down. Research firms have been able to patent genes for the last 30 years in the US.
Wow. So that's crazy, man. So all they gotta do, I mean, we talking about Vivica Foxes and people getting Vivica Foxes. And it's known that the messenger RNA changes, they just said it in the court of law. That damn, what is that called? That Reuter.com debunk fact check, bro. That's a lie. That's a lie, bro.
Humanity really is not evolved to think of existential threats in general. We're evolved to think about things that are very close to us, near term, to be upset with other humans, and not to really to think about things that could destroy humanity as a whole. But then in recent decades, just really in the last century, we had nuclear bombs, which could potentially destroy civilization, obviously. We have AI, which could destroy civilization. We have global warming, which could destroy civilization, or at least severely disrupt civilization. You know, it would be something in the same way that humans...
I wonder, I mean, let's see something. Let's look up. Let's look this up.
Researchers have found that the COVID-19 virus begins the process of creating copies by attaching its spikes to a host cell. Those spikes offer a target for vaccines. With the right preparations, our immune system can utilize this vulnerability. A vaccine is used to arm our immune system. It contains messenger RNA, which can direct cells to make specific proteins. The messenger RNA tells our cells to produce COVID spikes. These harmless spikes give our immune system the information needed to quickly detect a coronavirus infection and produce the appropriate antibodies. The new antibodies respond once COVID has entered the body. They attach themselves to the spikes on the COVID virus, rendering the spikes useless, protecting our cells and keeping the virus from reproducing. mRNA vaccines have been studied rigorously and are a safe and effective way to defend ourselves against COVID-19 infections.
Nah, that don't look like shit fell away. No actual virus is contained in the vaccine. Wouldn't the mRNA Nothing. This is wild, man. Wumbo.
After learning about DNA, have you ever wondered how can the DNA actually result in a trait? Let's take an example, like eye color. Yes, your DNA has the genetic information that codes for the color of your eyes. Your eye color is based on a pigment that is inside the eyes. But in order to have that pigment, you have genes, which are portions of DNA that can code for proteins, which help make that pigment. So what we're going to talk about is how your DNA can lead to the making of a protein. This process is called protein synthesis. Synthesis essentially means to make something, so protein synthesis means to make protein. And you may wonder, what's the big deal about proteins? Well, you may not realize this, but proteins are kind of a big deal. They do all kinds of things. Proteins are involved in transport, in structure, in acting as enzymes that make all kinds of materials, in protecting the body, and so much more. You've got to make proteins. It's essential for you to live. And what is so cool is that you are making proteins right now as you sit and watch this video. It's happening in your cells. They're making proteins. So back to your DNA and its role in all of this. All of your cells have DNA. Well, a few exceptions. And that DNA is in the nucleus. Some DNA is non-coding DNA. Some DNA makes up genes that are not activated. More about that in our gene regulation video, but we're going to talk about genes that are coding for active proteins. So how are we going to get the information from these genes out of the nucleus so that the cell can start producing the proteins that it needs to make? Well, let us introduce you to the amazing work of RNA. We have a video comparing and contrasting RNA and DNA. We'll be brief here in saying that RNA is a nucleic acid, like DNA, but it has a few differences. Its role in protein synthesis also is huge. Before we get into the process, please note our typical disclaimer. We tend to simplify topics, but as always, we hope that you have the desire to explore this complex, amazing process later on, to learn all about the extra information that we don't have the ability to include in this short video. In protein synthesis, we can look at two major steps. One is transcription and the other is translation. Transcription has a C in it, and translation has an L in it. I remember that C comes before L in the alphabet, which helps me remember that transcription comes first. I like a lot of alphabet mnemonics. Now, transcription is when we're going to transcribe the DNA into a message. In your cells, the DNA is in the nucleus, so therefore we're doing transcription in the nucleus. In the step of transcription, an enzyme called RNA polymerase will connect complementary RNA bases to the DNA. These RNA bases are bonded together to form a single-stranded mRNA. The M in mRNA stands for messenger. Messenger RNA consists of a message made of RNA that has been based on the DNA. We do want to mention that this mRNA is not usually ready to go right away. There's usually a significant amount of mRNA editing that occurs. We highly encourage you to do some reading about that because it's not only fascinating, it's critical for the process to work correctly. So what's something great about being mRNA? Well, in eukaryotes, you get out of the nucleus. The mRNA can go out of the nucleus into the cytoplasm where it's going to attach to a ribosome. Ribosomes make protein. The ribosome is made of rRNA, and that's an easy one to remember because the R stands for ribosomal RNA. The ribosome is going to build our protein in the next step called translation. You know, you can find a lot of great clips and animations on translation that are just fantastic. We're just going to break down some basics of what's happening. In the cytoplasm, if you look at this, you have all these tRNA molecules available. tRNA stands for transfer RNA. They carry an amino acid on them. An amino acid is the monomer for a protein. It's a building block for protein. Since we're making proteins, we're going to need those amino acids to build it. If you have a bunch of amino acids together, you can build a protein. So it's the tRNA that is going to bring those amino acids together to make that. But wait, how does the tRNA know which amino acids to bring? That's why the mRNA, the message, is so important because it's going to direct which tRNAs come in and therefore which amino acids are transferred. All of these tRNAs are looking for complementary bases. When they find the complementary bases on the mRNA, they transfer their amino acid. When tRNA is bringing in the amino acids, it reads the bases, represented by these letters here on the mRNA, in threes. So it doesn't read one letter at a time, it reads in triplets. That's called a codon. So for example, in this mRNA, the tRNA would read the codon AUG. One of these tRNAs contains a complementary anticodon, which in this case is UAC. All tRNAs that have the anticodon UAC will be carrying an amino acid called methionine. A tRNA with the UAC anticodon comes in to pair with the complementary AUG codon on the mRNA. It transfers the amino acid it carries, methionine. The tRNA will eventually leave, but it will leave behind its amino acid. That's the first amino acid before looking at the next codon. Before we do the next codon to carry this on, if you're wondering, how did you know that the tRNA that went with the AUG codon would be carrying an amino acid called methionine? Well, for that, you will find a codon chart helpful. You can learn to use a codon chart to determine which amino acid each mRNA codon will code for. Isn't it so fascinating that science...
I mean, I can keep going, bro, but it's clear. Nigga, whoever, they can do what they want with what they put in you to make you look or be or turn out however the hell they want you to be, bro. They can make it to where your babies don't come out. They can do anything they want with mRNA, bro. They telling you what the hell this shit is. Yeah, man. Yeah. I mean, it's clear. This is just the entire court proceeding and all the things that was brought forth. They can patent synthetically manipulated DNA. Let's see something.
Brilliant helps you see math in a new way. From the Pythagorean theorem to the area of a circle.
Imagine you were alive back in the 1980s and were told that computers would soon take over everything from shopping to dating and the stock market. That billions of people would be connected via a kind of web. That you would own a handheld device orders of magnitude more powerful than supercomputers. It would seem absurd, but then all of it happened. Science fiction became our reality and we don't even think about it. We're at a similar point today with genetic engineering. So let's talk about it. Where it came from, what we're doing right now, and about a recent breakthrough that will change how we live.
Hold on. Let me just say this. Those court proceedings, bro, stem from 2007 to 2009 to 2012. Court ruled on 2000 in 2013 and overturned and some shit. What they said, they agreed with some of it and then they didn't agree. The fortiori, when the higher court oversee the proceedings of a lower court or decisions that was made. So they agreed with some of it. And they said, okay, no, nigga, you cannot patent something naturally developing, naturally created. But yes, if you synthetically manipulate it, you can patent that. So, if you out there and then got the Vivica Fox and said, we seen who was involved, Moderna, Pfizer, we seen who was involved, right? If you done got the Vivica Fox and they decided that with the Vivica Fox, it was going to be something a little extra added or something a little extra taken away, or the sequence was to take something away or add something, then you stuck with that shit, bro. And they forcing you to succumb to this shit. They forcing you. So they all in cahoots with each other. They all in cahoots with each other, bro. So no, if you don't get your DNA manipulated, you can't be owned. But yes, if you do have your DNA manipulated, you can be owned. Am I saying it? Am I seeing it wrong? somebody will be like, nah, that's not what that's. I see where it's going, bro. I see where it's going, bro.
Live and what we perceive as normal forever. Humans have been engineering life for thousands of years. Through selective breeding, we strengthened useful traits in plants and animals. We became very good at this, but never truly understood how it worked, until we discovered the code of life, deoxyribonucleic acid, DNA, a complex molecule that guides the growth, development, function, and reproduction of everything alive. Information is encoded in the structure of the molecule. 4 nucleotides are paired and make up a code that carries instructions. Change the instructions and you change the being carrying it. As soon as DNA was discovered, people tried to tinker with it. It's encoded in the structure of the molecule. 4 nucleotides are paired and make up a code that carries instructions. Change the instructions and you change the being carrying it. 4 nucleotides are paired and make up a code that carries instructions. Change the instructions and you change the being carrying it. As soon as DNA was discovered, people tried to tinker with it. In the 1960s, scientists bombarded plants with radiation to cause random mutations in the genetic code. The idea was instructions. Change the instructions and you change the being carrying it.
You hear that, bro? Look at my man, though. He got his hands on his feet and his feet on his hands, bro. Bro, if you can put a nigga hands on his feet and his feet on his hands, bro. I mean, I ain't saying they can do it to somebody born. I mean, you probably can. Who knows, bro? You can accelerate. I mean, it's all type of stuff you probably can do, man. I can just see it in my mind. I'm just a regular guy. So if I can see it, bro, just imagine what's possible. It's crazy, man. Bro, what if, let me see something. I gotta run that back one more time, hold on.
As soon as DNA was discovered, people tried to tinker with it. In the 1960s, change the being carrying it. Molecule. 4 nucleotides are paired and make up a code that carries instructions. Change the instructions and you change the being carrying it. As soon as DNA was discovered, people tried to tinker with it. In the 1960s, scientists bombarded plants with radiation to cause random mutations in the genetic code. The idea was to get a useful plant variation by pure chance. Sometimes it actually worked too. In the 70s, scientists inserted DNA snippets into bacteria, plants, and animals to study and modify them. for research, medicine, agriculture, and for fun. The earliest genetically modified animal was born in 1974, making mice a standard tool for research, saving millions, and for fun. The earliest genetically modified animal was born in 1974, making mice a standard tool for.
Now, see, I just think that all this information is basically lost and rediscovered, because I mean, in the scripture it says that the sons of God took 200 fish in the sea, 200 fowl in the air, 200 beasts in the field, and 200 seeds, and miscegenated them. They genetically mutated them. They mixed them. They done something. Hold up right quick. Gotta take this call, y'all.
Research, saving millions of lives. In the 80s, we got commercial. The first patent was given for a microbe engineered to absorb oil. Today, we produce many chemicals by means of engineered life, like life-saving clotting factors, growth hormones, and insulin, all things we had to harvest from the organs of animals before that. The first food modified in the lab went on sale in 1994, the Flavor Saver tomato, a tomato given a much longer shelf life via an extra gene that suppressed the buildup of a rotting enzyme. But GM food and the controversy surrounding them deserve a video of their own. In the 1990s, there was also a brief foray into human engineering. To treat maternal infertility, babies were made that carried genetic information from 3 humans, making them the first humans ever to have 3 genetic parents. Today, there are super-muscled pigs, fast-growing salmon, featherless chickens, and see-through frogs. On the fun side, we made things glow in the dark. Fluorescent zebrafish are available for as little as $10. All of this is already very impressive, but until recently, gene editing was extremely expensive, complicated, and took a long time to do. This has now changed with a revolutionary new technology now entering the stage: CRISPR. Overnight, the costs of engineering have shrunk by 99%. Instead of a year, it takes a few weeks to conduct experiments, and basically everybody with a lab can do it. It's hard to get across how big a technical revolution CRISPR is. It literally has the potential to change humanity forever. Why did this sudden revolution happen, and
What's up? Did they clip me? Oh, it's good. It's back. It's back.
how does it work? Bacteria and viruses have been fighting since the dawn of life.
D-flat.
So-called bacteriophages or phages hunt bacteria. In the ocean, phages kill 40% of them every single day. Phages do this by inserting their own genetic code into the bacteria and taking them over to use them as factories. The bacteria try to resist, but fail most of the time because their protection tools are too weak. But sometimes bacteria survive an attack. Only if they do so can they activate their most effective antivirus system. They save a part of the virus DNA in their own genetic code in a DNA archive called CRISPR. Here, it's stored safely until it's needed. When the virus attacks again, the bacterium quickly makes an RNA copy from the DNA archive and arms a secret weapon, a protein called Cas9.
Hey, so why they don't let our body just do this? Why they don't let our body just heal itself, right? Why? Maybe some people are supposed to die from certain shit. We probably have to look at who's actually dying from a lot of these so-called viruses and diseases that's out here in the world. what if it's a certain people that naturally fight off all of these certain viruses that's in the world naturally? And what if they figure that out and then have to actually, in order to cure themselves, have to inoculate those that can actually naturally cure themselves? Once they inoculate them with the said virus, they just take their blood and then cure themselves. Y'all get that? People A get sick from every fucking thing. People B only get sick from the shit that they do to themselves. When people A get sick from shit that people B get sick from, people A die unless they get the cure from people B. Then they do the same thing that the virus did. They just put that shit in themselves, and now they're cured. I remember hearing things like the African American Hispanic community must receive the Vivica Fox, or it won't work. Oh. It won't work. They said, unless the African American and Hispanic community receive the vaccine won't work. But it's my understanding, right, that that's the whole idea for getting Vivica Foxed. See, it's some bullshit going on. It's some bullshit going on, and I feel like it's tied to that court case. It's like a nigga said, oh, we can't patent naturally occurring things, but we can patent synthetic manipulated things. Synthetically manipulated DNA can be patented. How do you synthetically manipulate DNA? By introducing a messenger RNA that can be synthetically made.
Standout events that get people talking. Don't take our word for it. Last year, we supported 15.
The protein now scans the bacterium's insides for signs of the virus invader by comparing every bit of DNA it finds to the sample from the archive. When it finds a 100% perfect match, it's activated and cuts out the virus.
Hey, that's right, bro. That's right, Big O. Bro, that's right, bro. They patent her shit, right? They took her shit and patented it, right? Let's look her up right quick. What I say? Oh shit, I did it again. Henrietta Lacks, born Loretta Pleasant, August 1st, 1920, October 4th, 1951, was an African-American woman whose cancer cells are the source of the HeLa cell line, the first immortalized human cell line, and one of the most important cell lines in medical research. An immortalized cell line produces indefinitely under specific conditions, and the HeLa cell line continues to be a source of invaluable medical data. So it keep reproducing under specific conditions indefinitely. Wow. And they basically took it, cultured it, and so even though some information about the origins of HeLa's immortalized cell lines was known to research after 1970, the Lax family was not made aware of the line's existence until 1975. And this was all the way back in 1951. With the knowledge of the cell line's genetic prominence became public, its use for medical research and for commercial purposes continues to raise concerns about privacy and patients' rights. That's right. But that's why you sign them papers that be like, you know what I'm saying, we can do whatever the fuck we take from this shit. Like when they remove skin or biopsy or anything like that, you sign that paperwork that say they can do what they want with that shit. That's crazy, man.
DNA, making it useless, protecting the bacterium against the attack. What's special is that Cas9 is very precise, almost like a DNA surgeon. The revolution began when scientists figured out that the CRISPR system is programmable. You can just give it a copy of DNA you want to modify and put the system into a living cell. If the old techniques of genetic manipulation were like a map, CRISPR is like a GPS system. Aside from being precise, cheap, and easy, CRISPR offers the ability to edit live cells, to switch genes on and off, and target and study particular DNA sequences. It also works for every type of cell, microorganisms, plants, animals, or humans.
Bro, they got that type of information, and you really want to put that shit in you. They got this type of technology, bro, and you really trust that they gonna do right by you. Then you just see they made the nigga hands be on his feet, bro. Bro, are you kidding me, bro? Bro, that's what it's boiling down to. The Inquisition. Get Vivica Fox or perish. But all those, I'm willing to bet that because by law, all those who may or may have not received manipulated messenger RNA can be owned, bro. Am I reaching? I mean, am I reaching, bro? I mean, I can see it going there, bro. Like, you're not going to be a human no more by law. You might look human, might smell human, but by law, because they're logging every single person in a database that have received Vivica Fox. Y'all don't see it? I don't know. I'm tripping. Maybe I'm tripping.
But despite the revolution CRISPR is for science, it's still just a first-generation tool. More precise tools are already being created and used as we speak. In 2015, scientists used CRISPR to cut the HIV virus out of living cells from patients in the lab, proving that it was possible. Only about a year later, they carried out a larger-scale project with rats that had the HIV virus in basically all of their body cells. By simply injecting CRISPR into the rats' tails, they were able to remove more than 50% of the virus from cells all over the body. In a few decades,
What? How old is this? 2016? Y'all see that?
by simply injecting CRISPR into the rats' tails, they were able to remove more than 50% of the virus from cells all over the body. In a few decades, a CRISPR therapy might cure HIV and other retroviruses, viruses that...
That's some BS, bro. You gotta wait a few decades for them to test a cure for HIV. But for Vivica Fox, that shit is almost instantaneous. Whoever get it, whatever get what, whoever, however it come out, what, like that shit don't make sense, bro. And it's free. It's free, man. But you gotta pay for the cure for HIV and cancer, bro. Or just to relieve the symptoms. Something fishy, man. Something fishy, bro.
hide inside human DNA, like herpes, could be eradicated cells all over the body. In a few decades, a CRISPR therapy might cure HIV and other retroviruses, viruses that hide inside human DNA, like herpes, could be eradicated this way. CRISPR could also defeat one of our worst enemies, cancer. Cancer occurs when cells refuse to die and keep multiplying while concealing themselves from the immune system. CRISPR gives us the means to edit your immune cells and make them better cancer hunters. Getting rid of cancer might eventually mean getting just a couple of injections of a few thousand of your own cells that have been engineered in the lab to heal you for good. The first clinical trial for a CRISPR cancer treatment on human patients was approved in early 2016 in the US. Not even a month later, Chinese scientists announced that they would treat lung cancer patients with immune cells modified with CRISPR in August 2016. Things are picking up pace quickly. And then there are genetic diseases. There are thousands of them, and they range from mildly annoying to deadly or entail decades of suffering.
They use a lot of fear tactics. Like, nigga, you gonna die, bro. Everybody's gonna die. Everybody gonna die from something. Hopefully it's natural causes next to your loved ones on the deathbed, in your house, in a hospice, somewhere comfortable. And you get to close your eyes, and the last thing you see is everybody you care about and care for you. Stop being afraid to die. They're using that tactic to get us to accept these medical modifications that they're imposing on us. They have all this technology to change you in a shot. And we are just accepting out of fear. I got to get ready for work, y'all. I wish I can go on. I'll probably get back on here tonight around about 8 o'clock. We gotta stop being afraid to die, y'all. Some of us supposed to die from some of this shit. I think personally, because I understand that it is the Most High that make alive and make dead. You know what I'm saying? He has the final say when the decrees go forth and it's time for one to be taken. He has the final say, bro. I think personally, they're trying to stop what the Most High is naturally doing. That's something that naturally occurs in time. I think they also mock the Most High or mimic him. He like, okay, time's winding down. He want to make sure that it's going to be a continuity of his people. He's going to knock some of us off. Well, let's do the same thing. Let's knock some of his people off. Let's even the playing field. That's what they're attempting to do. Theoretically, that's what comes to mind to me. The Most High send the hurricane. They changed the course of the hurricane. I'm not saying the Most High just down there like, yo, send that hurricane. I mean, he had sent a hurricane or a hurricane to come through a whole hood and a whole neighborhood will survive. And everybody else would be decimated. I think that that's what this is all about, personally. We'll talk later, y'all. Y'all have a good day. Thanks for those who stopped by. Give a shout out to A9, my little bro D Flat, Big O. Yes, sir. Who else came through? Taz the GOAT came through. A9 is the champion of Solar Vision Debate League. Mongo Slade came through. Shamala came through. That's what's up. I appreciate y'all. Like I said, I'll probably be back on at 8 o'clock. By then, I have these videos of different news clippings that paint a bigger picture of what I'm trying to convey right now. Peace to y'all. Don't forget to subscribe to Pseudosciences University. We is out of here.